Welcome to the CareClinic pod. I'm Emma, and this is Jones.
Hey everyone, ready to dive into a topic that's so relevant today? We're talking neurodivergent parenting and something really surprising.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the surprise?
Well, neurodivergence is way more common than most people think, and we're not talking about a small percentage here.
It's true, and current estimates suggest millions, literally millions of people worldwide are neurodivergent in some way.
Millions. So even before getting into the details, we're talking about something that touches a lot of lives.
Yeah, it's huge.
Like, think about it for a second. You probably know someone maybe struggled in a traditional classroom, but then they totally thrived when they found like hands-on learning or got into creative stuff.
Right. Or that friend who's got this boundless energy just sees the world differently.
Exactly. These are just glimpses into like the huge tapestry of neurodiversity.
And for too long, those differences were seen as something to be fixed instead of understood and appreciated.
Oh, totally. Like trying to force a square peg into a round hole,
Exactly. It's only recently we've started to appreciate the amazing strengths and unique perspectives that come with being neurodivergent.
Okay, so let's talk about this idea of a spectrum because I hear that word thrown around a lot. What does that actually mean?
Good question. It means neurodivergence isn't a single thing, not like you either are or aren't. It's more helpful to think of it as like a spectrum of differences
Differences in how?
in how our brains process information, learn, interact with the world. It's all different.
So conditions like autism spectrum disorder, we've got ADHD, dyslexia, sensory processing disorder. These all fall under this umbrella.
Exactly. And each of those conditions, those exist on a spectrum too, meaning individuals experience them in totally different ways.
Okay, so give me an example.
Sure. Someone with ADHD, they might have difficulty focusing, staying organized. Another person with ADHD might experience like hyperactivity and impulsivity. Really different.
And it's not about like labeling every single person, right? We're not trying to diagnose everyone here.
Right.
It's about understanding there's a wide range of ways to experience the world, and those differences, they should be celebrated, not stigmatized.
Absolutely. And that's where our deep dive comes in today. We're pulling insights from two really informative sources: Neurodivergent Parenting, Nurturing Differences with Care. Love that title. And we've also got long-term developmental outcomes for neurodivergent children.
Okay, love it. So whether you're a parent raising a neurodivergent child or just want to be more informed, a supportive friend, family member, colleague, this one's for you.
Exactly. We want to equip you with the knowledge to really understand this.
So let's start with the basics. What are some of the challenges, but also the strengths that neurodivergent children often have?
So every child is unique, right? Got to remember that. But there are some common threads we can look at from both these sources. A lot of neurodivergent children might find it challenging to process sensory information in the same way as their, neurotypical peers.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, so we're talking sounds, lights, textures, they can all be more intense.
That makes a lot of sense. Imagine a typical classroom, right? It's
Yeah.
got all that hustle and bustle, those fluorescent lights, constant chatter. No wonder some kids find it completely overwhelming.
Exactly. And then on top of all that sensory stuff, you've got social cues, which can be tricky.
Oh, I bet.
What might seem like a totally straightforward interaction for one kid might feel confusing, overwhelming to another.
So it's not that they don't want to engage, make friends, or anything like that.
Right.
It's just their brains might process those signals differently.
Exactly. And this is where that Nurturing Differences article has some really great advice. It encourages parents to teach social skills explicitly.
So like give them the tools.
Yeah, exactly. Tools and strategies to navigate those situations. It could be role playing, social stories, visual aids, whatever works. It's about like empowering them, right? Giving them what they need, not just trying to figure them. Now, these challenges are definitely real, and it's important to help kids work through them, but it's just as important to recognize and celebrate the incredible strength that neurodivergent individuals often have.
And that's where things get really interesting because we're not just talking about, overcoming obstacles. We're talking about unlocking potential. And the research on this is fascinating.
It really is. Remember that study we talked about? I think it was out of Cambridge University, the one that found like a significant number of people on the autism spectrum have higher than average IQs.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So they dug even deeper and found a link between autism and systematic thinking. Actually, a large percentage of the autistic individuals they studied way better at coding than their peers.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, it makes you think, right? Like neurodiversity can be this incredible source of strength, talent.
Exactly. And it goes way beyond just technology analytical stuff, too. That long-term outcomes article we've got, they actually profiled like successful artists, musicians, entrepreneurs, all neurodivergent. They were saying how their unique way of seeing the world, their heightened senses in some cases, their problem-solving skills, it's those things that made them excel.
So it's about finding the right environment, right? The right tools, the right support, so the strengths can really shine.
Exactly. And a lot of times that starts right at home.
Okay, so let's get practical. For the parents listening, how can they create a truly supportive, nurturing environment for their neurodivergent children?
Nurturing Differences, that book is full of amazing tips. One of the big ones is about creating a sensory-friendly home.
Makes sense. If you know your kid is sensitive to certain things like textures, sounds, lights, why not adjust the home to minimize those triggers?
Exactly. It can be as simple as, I don't know, getting rid of those scratchy tags on their clothes, dimming the lights if those are harsh, having noise-canceling headphones around, little things like that.
Right, but it doesn't have to be like a sterile environment either.
No, not at all. It's about knowing your child, their preferences, working with them to create a space that's calm, safe, comfortable.
And I imagine routines are super helpful too.
Totally. That article really stressed how much routines can help, especially for kids who need structure.
Right, like that feeling you get when you know what to expect. It's like, okay, we have breakfast, get dressed, it's time for school. Those little rhythms make such a difference.
And while we're on the topic of routines, visual schedules, game changer, instead of just telling a kid what's next, show them pictures, symbols, whatever works.
Giving them a roadmap for their day.
Exactly. And it all ties back to communication being so key. Just like you set up your home for success, classrooms need to be set up that way too. That's where parents might have to step in, advocate for their child's needs at school.
So working with the school to create an IEP, right?
Yeah.
That outlines specific learning goals, accommodations, all that.
Yes. An IEP is a legally binding document, so it ensures a child with a disability gets what they need. It's a team effort. Parents, teachers, specialists, all working together.
And this isn't about giving some kids an advantage. It's about making things fair. Because if a child needs noise-canceling headphones to focus or extra time on tests, that's not a privilege. It's just what they need.
Exactly. And this is something the long-term outcomes article brought up, the role of assistive technology.
Oh, interesting.
It is, and it's huge for neurodivergent individuals. You know, the World Health Organization, they did a whole report on this. It can be totally transformative.
And
They found that things like speech-generating devices, those are big, but even sensory apps, remember we talked about those, or just noise-canceling headphones in the classroom. It can massively improve a kid's ability to learn, engage, just be present.
it's like imagine putting on the right pair of glasses for the first time.
Right.
And suddenly you see everything clearly.
Perfect analogy. And it's not just about, school and all that. Assistive tech can also help with social communication, daily living skills, the stuff we take for granted.
It's about empowering them to actually live their lives to the fullest. And speaking of support, we got to mention our CareClinic app. It is such a valuable resource, especially for parents who are raising neurodivergent kids. Tons of tools, information, all to help navigate this journey.
I'm so glad you brought that up. The CareClinic app can be a game changer, tracking your child's progress, finding local support groups, even just managing appointments, medications. It's all right there.
Right. Because let's be real, parenting is a lot. And then you add in the layer of neurodiversity. It's beautiful, it's rewarding, but it can be really challenging too.
Absolutely. And that's why that support is so key. Just knowing you're not alone, having somewhere to turn for advice, for a listening ear, that makes all the difference.
And, one thing both our sources today really highlighted, we've got to shift the narrative around neurodiversity. It shouldn't be seen as a deficit. It's about celebrating the unique strengths and perspectives that come with it.
Right. Different doesn't mean less than. It means we need to build a world that values those differences, where everyone feels seen, heard, appreciated for who they are.
And that all starts with understanding, which is what we've tried to do today. We took a deep dive into this world, right? Talked about the science, practical tips for parents, the challenges, but also the incredible strengths. It's a lot.
It is. And I think the biggest takeaway for me, it's a journey. There will be ups and downs, good days and bad days. That's just life, right? But with the right support, understanding, and being open to learning and adapting alongside your child, amazing things can happen.
So well said. So for anyone listening who might be feeling a little overwhelmed, maybe even a little alone in this, you are not alone. Seriously. There are resources out there, communities of support, and there's a lot of hope for the future.
Absolutely. And if you want more info, dive deeper into all this, definitely check out the full articles we talked about today. We had Neurodivergent Parenting, Nurturing Differences with Care, such a great one. And then that long-term developmental outcomes piece. We'll link those in the show notes.
Yes. And of course, download the CareClinic app. You've heard us talk about it. It can really make a difference in this journey. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. This is such an important topic. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.